Okay, guys, so let's take a look at some pictures of fossils, and we'll look at lots of pictures. They're in no particular order or organized in any specific way, but we'll just look at a bunch of pictures of fossils. Uh, so let's jump into it. So for one thing, here we have a sedimentary rock, appears to be a sandstone. And if you look at this carefully, you can probably make out the impression of a jellyfish. Okay, so here we have a jellyfish. There's the top of the jelly there, and its tentacles oriented diagonally to the upper right and lower left. When we started talking about fossils, we said, well, usually creatures with hard parts get preserved. Here's an example of a creature with no hard parts that got preserved. Jellyfish have no bones, they have no shell. And here's an example of a jellyfish fossilized. This is an unusual fossil, it's quite rare. The best candidates for fossilization are, again, creatures with hard parts, but under the right situations, we can have fossilization of any organism occur. And in order for that to happen, and I mentioned this once before, we need to have the animal be buried quickly. So when this jellyfish died, it had to get buried by sediment rapidly. That way, scavengers don't eat it. That way, it doesn't have time to decompose. And then a fine sediment usually has to cover the organism too. So something like, sand or silt or clay has to bury that creature quickly. And if things happen in just the right way and the timing is just right, we can get fossilization of these soft-bodied organisms. Again, very rare. This is a special fossil, but it can happen. Let's look at some other pictures. Here we have a very common fossil. This is what's called a crinoid, and crinoids lived in the ocean. They're kind of similar to a modern day sea anemone, if you know what those are. But here's a preserved crinoid. This creature would anchor itself to the seafloor. It had a stem, a calyx or body with tentacles. And basically it would just be on the seafloor, attached to the seafloor, and it would wait for something tasty to basically float by. And it would grab it with its tentacles and then eat it. But these are very common fossils, although not commonly well preserved. And that's something that we'll talk about more as we go along. So this is a creature that lived on the seafloor. It would basically just stay stationary. It is an animal, it's not a plant, even though it might resemble a tree in some sense. It is an animal. It would wait for something to float into its tentacles, and then it would grab it and eat it. And again, a complete crinoid is rare. Usually when these animals died, they would fall apart and disintegrate. And we'll see some pictures of that later on. Here's a fossil of a crinoid. We can see the stem. Oftentimes when these creatures die, they break apart. Here we can see the tentacles here. Here's part of the stem here, there, and more of the stem over here. And then these little round circles are little bits of stem that have broken from the crinoid too. So when an animal dies, it usually doesn't stay in one piece. It usually falls apart before fossilization happens. Here's a drawing of a crinoid too. Many different species of crinoids, but again, it would be anchored to the seafloor. It would have a stem, the calyx or body, and then it would have these tentacles. On this species, they almost look like feathers, right? So different species of crinoids. And one of the things that I think is kind of interesting about fossils too is we've been studying them for centuries. There's great fossil artwork, and I know that many of you are in advanced art and are interested in art. We've been studying fossils well before photography, so there's many great illustrations and drawings of fossils. Here's another crinoid. We can see the stem. We can see the tentacles out this way. And something that's very difficult about studying fossils is orientation. We have no way sometimes of knowing which way was up and which way was down and whether it was sideways and so on. So figuring out the direction that the creature lived is sometimes challenging. Here's another very famous fossil. This is one that many of you are probably familiar with. This is called a trilobite. Trilobites ranged in size from the size of a pencil eraser up to several feet across. They lived on the seafloor and they would crawl around. They're related loosely to modern day horseshoe crab. but they would crawl around on the seafloor. They had legs underneath. They had two eyes, an eye there, eye here, and here's their head, right? And then there's their body and their tail piece. Three-bodied plan, or three body segments. So they had a tail piece, a body piece, and a head part. And they would crawl around on the seafloor, and they would look for tasty things to eat in the sediment and muck. Here's another very famous fossil. This is called an ammonite. Ammonites are related to modern-day chambered nautilus, if you've heard of a nautilus. But spiral shell, they would swim in the water. So it looks like a giant snail shell, but these creatures actually had a head that would be over here with tentacles that came out, and they would have the ability to swim in the water column. And they were actually fierce predators. They would swim around and catch prey. Some of these ammonite fossils can get quite large, and here's a pretty big one. Again, the head would be here. There would be tentacles. They would swim in the water and catch small fish and other creatures. Here we have a fossilized crab. So again, creatures with hard parts tend to dominate the fossil record. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they were dominant life forms in the world. It just means they're dominant in the fossil record. We have most fossils representing hard-bodied animals, things with shells and bones. Doesn't necessarily mean that they were dominant life forms, though. Here's an interesting fossil, and it's an example of what we would call a trace fossil. Here we see all of these squiggly tubes, and these were made by worms. So these are worm burrows. You're not actually looking at worms themselves, but these are like basically hard tunnels that the worms would have created. So here we see evidence of past life, even though we're not looking at direct past life. Here we have fossil clamshell, fossil seashell. Fossil shells are very common. And we can see these little lines on here. And these little lines are even significant. These indicate that there was probably some sort of parasitic creature eating the clamshell while it was alive. Now here we have one of the most common fossils that you might find. And you might think it's a fossil seashell. Well, in a basic sense it is. But this is a creature called a brachiopod. Brachiopods used to be one of the dominant life forms in the world. Now, they're not completely extinct, but they're hugely reduced in numbers. There's only a small population of them left in the world. These are not clams, they're not gastropods, they're not snails. These are not mussels. These are brachiopods, which are, largely uncommon today. But what sets them apart from a clam is we can see in their shell there's this indentation, and that's a very different shell pattern than a clam that we would find. A clam would have a more symmetrical shell. Here we have insects trapped in amber, big chunks of amber with various insects and creatures trapped within them. Here we have, again, I mentioned a little while ago, artwork is very common in paleontology, paleontology being the study of past life, because we don't have photographs to work from. So here we have a recreation of an ammonite, and we can see the head, the eyes, the tentacles, and this is a predator. It would swim through the water searching for food. Here we have a very unusual creature. Early in the 20th century, there was a large fossil deposit found in Canada in a place called the Burgess Shale. And these creatures are some of the best examples of soft-bodied preservation. These creatures were largely soft animals. They didn't have bones. They didn't have shells. And here we have a very interesting predator, very strange creature. It had these fin-like structures, and it would swim in the water. It was a predator, 2 eyes, and it had these almost elephant-like trunks, but the trunks were coated with a sharp, jagged, tooth-like material, and it would basically grab its prey and then consume it in this sucker-like mouth. Very unusual creature. Here we have another one called Hallucinogenia, and this was also found in the Burgess Shale. We have legs, and then we have spines on the back. When this fossil was first discovered, paleontologists had no way of knowing which way was up. And they actually had it backwards at first. They thought that the legs were the spikes and the spikes were the legs. And then as they studied the creature more, they realized they had it backwards. Again, artwork is very important in paleontology because we don't have pictures to work from. Here we have a very famous creature, Archaeopteryx, first creature ever found with feathers. And now we know much more about dinosaurs than we did even when I was a kid. And we know that many, many dinosaurs had feathers, quite possibly T-Rex. We don't like to think of T-Rex as having feathers because it just doesn't seem scary enough that way. But T-Rex probably did have feathers. That doesn't mean it could fly, but it probably had feathers for ornamentation, for decoration, maybe mating displays, things like that. Here's the fossil of Archaeopteryx. And we could see it wasn't very big, very bird-like, and we'll talk about the evolution of birds and dinosaurs in a later video. But here we can see the impression of the feathers. So this is a very significant find. It really was the first piece of evidence that perhaps dinosaurs didn't exactly just go extinct, but maybe evolved into birds. We can see the tail feathers here. Archaeopteryx, very famous fossil. Here we have the La Brea tar pits out in California. And this is all natural tar, oily, asphalt-like material. These are statues of elephants and mastodons and mammoths, of course. But creatures fell into this oil, perished, and then were preserved. Again, for decay processes, we need water, we need oxygen. In a tar pit, you don't have that. So those creatures are nicely preserved. And when people extracted the fossil remains from the tar pits, we found all kinds of creatures from what's called the Pleistocene time period. We found prehistoric wolves and cats and bears and all kinds of interesting mammals. This is more recent than the time of the dinosaurs. Here we have fossil ferns, right, being preserved. So remember, fossils aren't just about animals. Plants get preserved too. Here we have some round-shaped fossils, and there's the penny there for scale. These tubes are actually the stem of the crinoid that we saw earlier in the video. Usually when crinoids die, they fall apart and disintegrate pretty quickly, and we just see these tubes. So sometimes we just find these cylinders, and it's actually quite rare to find a complete crinoid intact with the head and with the tentacles and so on. Fossils can also be quite small. And here we have fossilized pollen. Even pollen can become fossilized. And here we see different shapes to the pollen under the microscope, different pollen structures. So even fossils can be very, very tiny. Of course, we have dinosaurs like Diplodocus. And we'll talk about dinosaurs in their own right in another video. Here's fossil shrimp. So these are fossilized creatures that we usually don't think about. Most of the time when people think of fossils, they think of T-Rex and they think of Velociraptor. And they don't think about fossil shrimp. Here we have more fossil ferns. Here's that carbonation film preservation that we talked about in one of the other videos. As the plant material partially decomposes, it leaves this carbon film. We often find these types of fossils near large coal deposits, like in places like Pennsylvania. Here are more brachiopods. Brachiopods typically have an indent on one part of their shell. If we look at the shell from a side view, we see they're asymmetrical. They're not the same. The top shell is different from the bottom shell. That's unlike a clam. If you have a clam for dinner, the top shell is going to be basically the same as the bottom shell. They're going to be, the two sides, the two halves are basically going to be the same. And here we have a fossil dragonfly. Even insects can be preserved, but again, rapid burial, fine sediment. And here we can see that that sediment is very fine. This is probably a siltstone that this dragonfly died in. Rapid burial, fine sediment, and we can get exquisite preservation of soft-bodied creatures and creatures that would normally not fossilize. All right, so why don't we stop this video here? We'll look at more pictures, and then we'll look at actual fossils in a little bit.